Hi, so I'm doing Be the Teacher for Unit 4, which is Political Geography, and Chapter 8 in our textbook. So 8.1 is where are the states distributed. For politics and geography, a state, or also known as country, is an area that's organized into a political unit and ruled by an established government that has control over its internal and foreign affairs, occupying a defined territory on Earth's surface and containing a permanent population. Most of the world is made up of states, and in the last 80 years, the world's added 150 states to its 50 to make it 200. Microstates are states with very small land areas, for example, Vatican, Monaco, and Nauru. Here's some other small states, like here's some examples of that. So there's a lot of them. The challenges in defining states is that sovereignty is the independence from control of its internal affairs by other states, so it creates a formal or uniform region. But states make that difficult to define their sovereignty, which is some of those states are like Korea, which split after World War II into the North and South, and the Saudi Republic and Western Sahara. China and Taiwan, which is like nationalists versus communists, and then Senkaku and the Diaoyu Islands, which has conflicting claims. The evolution of states. So the first states were ancient states, which were the first one was Mesopotamia, located in the Fertile Crescent. A city-state is a sovereign state that comprises a town and the surrounding countryside. So, like Singapore is an example of a current one. The Roman Empire controlled most of Europe for a time, and North Africa and Southwest Asia, as one empire until it split into many states that exist today, such as England, Spain, France, most of Europe. Nation states. So, a nation is a large group of people who are united by common cultural characteristics such as language or ethnicity, or by shared history. A nation state is a state whose territory corresponds to that occupied by a particular nation. Self-determination is the concept that nations have the right to govern themselves. And then nation states in Europe came after World War I, when they split up and then the Nazis tried to unify, but it didn't work. So and that resulted in World War II, but ultimately Europe ended up separate. And then ethnic diversity caused breakups of states such as Yugoslavia, since there's much ethnic diversity between states. So nation states in the former Soviet Union, there was a union of Soviet socialist republics, which consisted of 15 republics based on 15 largest ethnicities, but broke up into individual states in 1991. So then there was 15 states right here. The breakup of the Soviet Union resulted in the creation of 3 Caucasus states, which is Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania were the Baltic states that resulted from that. Belarus and Moldova also resulted from that. And then Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan had separate. There was a civil war between them, so that's when they split up. So multinational states in the former Soviet Union. So a multinational state is a state that contains more than one nation. So the largest multinational state in the world is Russia, which has 81% of ethnic Russians, but contains 185 ethnic groups, with the remaining 19%. Ukraine was predicted to be a stable nation because of its economy, but the Russian population created an uprising through the ethnic differences. Georgia and Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan also have high ethnic diversities. A colony is a territory that is legally tied to a sovereign state rather than being completely independent, and colonies are not territories. Current colonies are that exist in the world today are Western Sahara, French Polynesia, New Caledonia, and Pitcairn Island. So key issue 3, why do states face threats? Global crop. Oh, I forgot to say before that I did key issue 2, but that I covered all of key issue 2. But for key issue 3, global cooperation and competition. There's Cold War. But U.S. and Soviet Union were the world superpowers during that Cold War, and they said they would use military force if necessary. So a balance of power, which is the condition of roughly equal strength between opposing alliances, was created through the United Nations, which plays an important role in trying to separate warring groups in many places. Another event was the Cuban Missile Crisis, which had to do with global competition, which the Soviet Union secretly began to construct missile launching sites in Cuba, which was less than 150 kilometers from a U.S. territory. So for governing states at the national scale, there's democracy, autocracy, and anocracy, which are 3 different ways that states usually govern themselves nationally. And then at the local scale, there's unitary or federal states. So there's weapons of mass destruction. So a weapon of mass destruction is a nuclear, biological, chemical, or other weapon that can kill and bring significant harm to a large number of humans or cause great damage to human-made structures, natural structures, or the biosphere. So the U.S. collaborated with Canada and the U.K. to develop them during World War II, and the Soviet Union developed them during the Cold War. So in response to that, multiple countries created a treaty on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons to avoid destruction, which went into force in 1970, and has been signed by 191 countries but not suspect states, which are considered to be Libya, Iraq, Iran, and Syria. Europe also created economic alliances like the European Union and the Council for Mutual Economic Assistance, and Europe created military alliances like the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the Warsaw Pact. So for issue 4, why do states have distinctive geographic structure? We look at boundaries, which a boundary is an invisible line that marks the extent of a state's territory. And there's different types of boundaries. There's a cultural boundary, which can be created by religion or language, such as in Ireland. There's geometric boundaries, such as the boundary between Canada and the United States, for most of it at least. And that's also there's a geometric boundary in North Africa, a lot of them are, and the South Pole. And then there's physical boundaries, which can be created by any physical barrier, like a desert, mountain, or water, any water. Also, which has to do with boundaries, is the law of the sea. So territorial waters for a country is up to 12 nautical miles, which regulates passage by ships registered in other states. The contiguous zone, which is between 12 and 24 nautical miles, enforces laws concerning pollution, taxation, customs, and immigration. The exclusive economic zone, which is between 24 and 200 nautical miles, is solely the right to fish and other marine life for that state. Electoral geography is also discussed in issue 4, and that has to do with gerrymandering, which is redrawing legislative boundaries to benefit the party in power. So 2 types of gerrymandering is cracking and packing. And that's it for Unit 4, which is Chapter 8 in our textbook, Political Geography.